Two things are powering me right now. BetUS and the football gods, the preseason football gods, who have blessed me with the presence of Mike Tomlin in my life for a few precious days.
Several years back, man, at various levels of football, man, two-a-days got eliminated. And so back when I first started, two-a-days were commonplace. Matter of fact, every day. I'm not looking for the feel-good. I want to sharpen iron on iron.
I'm not looking for the feel good either. This feels good. I think that preseason games are what they are, and yet Mike Tomlin and D'Amico Ryans both advocate a lot of competition, a lot of physicality. There's been chippiness during training camp, so I got to watch Mike Tomlin's press conference today and learned a good few little tidbits for this upcoming Texans game. And let's get this out of the way. The Brandon Ayuk situation, as of the recording of this video, has not been resolved. If it has by the time you watch it, I don't think that he would play in this Steelers-Texans game just because of the timing of it all. 49ers reportedly would like to get a receiver back in any deal that they execute. I doubt it would be George Pickens, but maybe it would be Van Jefferson. We will see. Regardless, even if the Steelers traded for Brandon Ayuk right this moment, I doubt he would play in the preseason game on Friday night. So who will play in the preseason game, Mike Tomlin? Or maybe instead tell me who won't play in the preseason game.
In the offensive line, Cam Hayward, TJ Watt, Alex Highsmith along the defensive front, Russ Wilson, Minka, Patrick Queen.
Oh, dear. Patrick Queen, I was excited to see. Cam Hayward, TJ Watt, and Alex Highsmith, I really wanted to see because I wanted to see this offensive lineman versus some top-notch defensive linemen. So for the Steelers fans who are brought here via the algorithm, the Texans offensive line is a little bit in flux right now. The starters are probably going to be at left tackle Laramie Tunsil, but he hasn't practiced yet. He's not going to play in this game on Friday. And then at left guard, Kenyon Green and Juice Scruggs are the big question marks. Kenyon Green is a third-year guy, but who had a dicey rookie year and then didn't play at all last year with injuries. He's come back with a reinvented physique. He looks more athletic. The early results from the first preseason game were promising, but he's going against largely backups. And Juice Scruggs, second-year player who was drafted to be a center, played some at left guard. It didn't look so hot. He's a natural-born center, but at least those two guys will be facing a couple of starters in Benton and Ogunjobi. Apologies, Ogunjobi, if I get your name wrong. I somehow typically do. Now, the Texans defense will face a bunch of starters, except for the left guard as of right now, and Russell Wilson, who's the starter on the depth chart. But Russell Wilson's nursing a calf injury that he sustained during the conditioning test, and he hasn't been out there much at all until the last few days. Mike Tomlin was asked if there is indeed a genuine quarterback competition going on.
Would you still categorize this as a quarterback competition? And if it is, how do you weight what happens on the practice field here versus what happens in a stadium?
Very much is a competition. What happens in stadium is weighted heavier than what happens in a practice setting because it's more game-like.
Still view Russell as having that pole position and being ahead of Justin in that?
You guys saw the depth chart that I released yesterday. That is real.
Did you not read the depth chart that I wrote for you? I spent a lot of time on that depth chart, damn it. The fun thing about this is that he said that the time on the field in the games matters more in terms of the competition. So the Texans do play a hand in this otherwise meaningless preseason game in perhaps determining the starter of the Pittsburgh Steelers at quarterback. So if you're into competition, if you're into winning, go to BetUS. Mike Vick's going to tell you about it.
Michael Vick here at BetUS.com. Get it all. Huge bonuses, great odds, a race book, live in-game betting, and a casino. BetUS, my online sports book and casino.
You get super fast payouts, and right now you're getting a 125% bonus on your first 3 deposits up to $2,000. The link is in the description, and it's a fun website. Just go check out all the different options you have, even for preseason. You got to get warmed up for the season. Don't let your old school football coach / podcaster down. And the reports out of Pittsburgh are that Justin Fields looks a lot better than he did even in OTAs. He's a guy that's always struggled with consistency. He's got such great natural arm talent that he got away with really bad footwork and inconsistent footwork for a long time, which came up when Mike Tomlin was asked about what he's seen out of Justin Fields and how he's improved.
He just had a focus on his footwork in the pocket, body balance, posture in which he throws from. It's been a point of emphasis for him. going into the offseason, and I've just seen the fruit of that labor or the attention that he's given it.
So the last time the Texans saw Justin Fields, it was 2 years ago, is at the very beginning of the season, and he was a wreck. And he would go later on after tweaking the offense. He looked a lot better later in that year, and you saw some of the flashes and the glimpses of what he can be. So I'm really intrigued in this new Arthur Smith offense. So the offensive coordinator is Arthur Smith, deposed head coach of the Atlanta Falcons, but who was a really good offensive coordinator in Tennessee. We saw him a bunch of times. Derrick Henry had some of his very best games against the Texans. Don't ask me to name which one, because there were a bunch of them. But Arthur Smith, I'm intrigued by him. I think he might be one of those guys that's just not cut out to be a head coach, but when he can be in his little hole, in his little cave, and just scheme up offensive coordinator type stuff with the guidance of an actual head coach like Mike Tomlin, who's a hell of an actual head football coach. I'm intrigued to see what they can do, but also because, look, the Texans last year did not face a whole ton of mobile quarterbacks. When they did, it didn't go so hot. Anthony Richardson torched the Texans for 2 rushing touchdowns in the first quarter. Anthony Richardson ran about a sum total of 40 yards on those 2 touchdowns, barely being touched until right at the goal line on one of them. They faced Kyler Murray when Kyler Murray was still like literally getting his feet under him. It was his second game back, and he just flat out looked tired by the end of that game. And then Lamar Jackson, it just didn't go so hot. The first game of the year, Lamar Jackson's legs didn't hurt the Texans as much because Lamar Jackson was still getting used to that new offense. And his legs weren't the total story in that playoffs game, but Justin Fields was the second leading rusher at quarterback last year. He had the 3rd most attempts. And in a new offense, it could be really interesting. And obviously, this is a preface to the regular season game. So maybe more important than your average preseason game, especially because you've got 2 head coaches that really embrace the physical part of the game and competition and everything else. Like these guys, they want to butt heads. And Mike Tomlin was actually asked if it would be good for this new offense to face a team like the Texans, any team at all, so they can see a defense that's scheming against them.
It's only a new offense. How instructive can it be to face somebody else's defense who's trying to pick it apart for the first time?
I really think just right now is focus on self and less about the strategic component of others, whether it's the defense or the Houston Texans, which we face.
Did you hear that? He doesn't care about the Texans, the nerve. If I were an irresponsible headline writer, I'd write something like that, or a thumbnail creator. I do think both of these offenses, the Texans and the Steelers offense, are going to see a different front than they've been facing in practice, or in the case of the Texans, a different defensive front than they saw in the Bears game, because the Steelers are a 3-4 defense, Texans are a 4-3 defense, and I know it doesn't matter as much these days, but it matters a lot on the downs that it does matter. So it's different math for the offensive linemen. Their blocking rules change. It changes for the quarterbacks who are analyzing those things when they're setting the protection and everything else like that. So I think that's going to be really good for both teams. And again, it's been chippy as hell in Steelers camp. I feel like every single year it becomes a story that somehow, hey, it's chippy this year in Steelers camp. Yeah, that's what it's like. Tomlin gets these guys to compete like hell against each other. I'm very eager to see Kamari Lassiter, the rookie cornerback, going up against George Pickens at times, because Lassiter's not a guy that wants to shy away from physicality or confrontation either. Tomlin was asked about the George Pickens, Joey Porter beefing that's been going on during camp.
The Joey Porter, George Pickens back and forth we see this camp, is it analogous to the AB Ike Taylor matchup of years past?
I think those matchups always occur in a setting like this. The familiarity associated with Steelers versus Steelers, meaning 1s on 1s, 2s on 2s. You get high intensity matchups. I've liked the Freiermuth D. Elliott matchup, for example, has been on display here. And so, there's a lot of those. And it is reflective of things in the past, because I'm not looking for the feel good. I don't go 1s versus 2s, 2s versus 1s. I want to sharpen iron on iron. And so it gets intimate at times.
It gets intimate. Hey, you pissed me off and it's about to get intimate. It's actually pretty intimidating. If somebody said that to me, I'd think twice about fighting them. Also, D'Amico Ryans and Mike Tomlin, both big fans of the iron on iron or iron sharpens iron. I'd have to give the edge to D'Amico on that one because iron sharpens iron has an active verb in it where iron on iron. What are we? We're dealing with prepositions here. Ugh. But I do think, like, I can tell you as a player, whenever you go against the Steelers, you're ready to play. There's something about seeing the black and gold that they tend to put out tough physical teams, and you don't want to get punked by a team that looks at themselves as tough and physical. The offense is a huge question mark this year. The quarterback is a huge question mark this year. They're all works in progress for the Steelers. But when it comes to the defense, they were a very respectable defense last year, but not up to classic Pittsburgh standards. I think their linebacking core might end up being a pretty good bunch this year. You know, Patrick Queen is obviously the headline signing, but they're a physical bunch. We won't see their 3 best pass rushers, but the Texans do get to see Danielle Hunter and Will Anderson, et cetera, every day in practice. Just nice to see live action. Tomlin said he's going to play the starters for probably 2 series. I'm guessing the Texans will be about the same. Very, very small sample size, but it could determine the fate of Justin Fields.
In the world of advertising, there's no such thing as a lie. There's only the expedient exaggeration. You ought to know that.
I'm Seth Payne, played 10 years in the NFL as a defensive lineman. Now I'm on Sports Radio 610 every morning from 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. And, of course, this YouTube channel. So please like, subscribe, and thank you to BetUS for sponsoring this video.